Heyo everybody, Haku here with this week's review for Tower of God. We got chapter 439, or season 3, episode 22, I think we're at? Yeah, I think we're at 22. For a second there I was wondering if it was still 21, but no, I think we've made it to 22 finally. But I actually enjoyed this one. This is getting into sort of some of the stuff I really like about Tower of God that we don't get to see that often anymore, which is really cool games with rule sets and all that. I think that is when Tower of God is at its best. So yeah, I'm excited about that aspect of things, and just generally, I liked a lot of the stuff here. Now, I do feel like most of my observations are going to be pretty surface level, but I also kind of feel like that's what CU's going for. Just sort of a straightforward battle shonen. I don't think he's really trying anything more deeply than that. But to start from the beginning, to talk through this, so Mule tries to escape, and it seems like when he's escaping from Yama's attack that his eye escapes out of his head, and I was like, that's really weird. Is it some sort of escape pod type thing? I have no idea what's going on here. Because Mule's already so odd, we don't know how the skeleton armor works, and I believe it was Slayer nominee in the comments. It may have been Shadow Lugia, but I believe it was Slayer nominee. In the comments said that could it be something similar to what Karaka did on the Floor of Death? And I don't remember the full circumstances of how everything worked with that, but they could be totally right, because Karaka does have similar armor, and Karaka did this thing back at the Floor of Death when he was just about to get completely wrecked by Mazano, and he went full-on escape pod, and he was like the little floaty tadpole Karaka head for a while. So whatever Mule did could be something similar to that, though it seemed like when Yama brought back down Mule's body, the armor itself was making noises. So I'm not sure if the armor itself is the sort of personality or whatever of Mule. So it's very odd, but I do think the eye escaping or whatever we saw there, I do think it's going to be important in the future. So we see that at least Yama's level 1 transformation is called Rival, so that's really cool, and we see that he's incredibly powerful with just level 1, as we could all just assume. So getting to Bomb and Karaka traveling towards Doom's group, Karaka's thinking that he plans to use Bomb's status as a regular to their advantage, which is smart because he's a Slayer candidate, he's an irregular, he's incredibly special, but if they can challenge them to a game using the fact that Bomb is a regular to make Doom's group sort of underestimate them, that's all for the better. So, cutting to Doom's group and seeing things from their point of view for a bit, Doom says he isn't worried about Ruel. He isn't worried about Ruelmon, which makes total logical sense because he says, you know, he can only throw that spear once. He probably threw it from really far away, so he's got plenty of distance from us and plenty of extra time to run away. So, he wasn't really worried about Ruel. He's like, just leave it. But Paul, after being told just leave it by Doom, notices Kunaguru Agnes and actually recognizes him, where he's like, wait, I killed that guy. Why is he here? Berdish then, coming out of the rubble, offers full loyalty to Kunaguru Agnes, saying, you know, you saved my life, so I'm gonna spend my life working for your benefit. Which, again, makes sense. It's cool that Berdish is so quickly like, yeah, you brought me back to life. Of course I'm gonna use my life to help you. I owe you the biggest one I could owe. But in exchange, Berdish also wants the Firefish to be used to up her level to level 4 transformation. They do that, and she gets 2 Dazzling Emerald Arms as the name of the level 4 transformation for her. So I really like her, and I like this in a way. I feel like on the one hand, there's 2 ways to look at it. On the one hand, this isn't a power-up that Kun had to work to achieve, and it's also not a power-up that Kun has had to work to improve or to learn how to use. However, on the other hand, we don't know yet if it is a finite thing, because we know that it comes from Yeon Woon's flame being given to Kun. Now, if that fused with some sort of sweet fish within him, or if the flame gained a life of its own, or however it works, we don't know yet, but we do know the sort of origin point is Yanwun's flame, and if that's the case, we don't know if it's a finite resource that's going to run out if he keeps using it. Also, this, from what the blog says, doesn't seem to be something that he can use to just go around making everyone stronger. It seems to be just a sort of buff ability. So again, I think in general I like this because I just generally like Burdish's character, and I think there's a lot of potential there for her and Kuhn's like sort of savior-savee relationship. Also, I called her British in the live reaction, and I'm gonna stick with that pronunciation because of something else that I'll bring up in the blog when I get to the blog info. So I think that that's a pretty reasonable like pronunciation of the name, but either way. So another thing I thought was great was Rack seeing him do this and being like, well shit man, I want to power up, just throw some of that firefish this way. I thought that was really, really good. So Karaka and Bomb finally arrive. Bomb finds out about Dang Dang, kind of, that he's likely dead. Or actually that he is dead because the brother comes out of the rubble with his body and with, or dead. He's not fully dead yet. But the brother comes out of the rubble, and I'm just calling him the brother right now because he was the guy that died earlier's brother, and we have no other name to call him by. But he got out of there with the corpse of Dang Dang and with Michael, who really lucked out on this one. And honestly, this scene, I think, is the coolest Doom has been. I've not really been that into Doom, he's just kind of whatever, but this was the coolest he's been when he was like, giving his little spiel about, oh, he gave what was rightfully mine back to me and stuff, and I was like, this is the coolest Doom has been. But also, Doom kind of had a point and wasn't really wrong, where Bomb's like, oh, how cruel, and I'm like, how cruel? He couldn't help what happened to Dang Dang. Like, Doom has nothing to do with what happened to Dang Dang, really. He even says, you know, you could bring him back to life. There's a possibility of that he could survive if he gets his real heart back, which is totally set up for Louis to save Dang Dang in the future. But he's giving this option and saying, oh yeah, you could totally bring him back to life if you do this, but Doom isn't being cruel, he's not in the wrong. Doom had no control over who his heart got put into before it was brought back to him. Like, Doom has no control over that. So Doom really didn't do anything cruel or particularly wrong there. But we find out that Karaka's sort of big gambling chip is, Yama's awake and he'll just kill you all if you don't accept the challenge. Which is like, kind of just, yeah, they're screwed. They have to accept Karaka's challenge or Yama's just gonna kill them all. Also, Tall is late as hell. Tall radios in and is like, Paul, Yama's awake. And it's like, Tall ran away from Jordan like seemingly a while ago. So we ran away from Jordan, and Bomb and Karaka physically made it there before he could even call in to give him a heads up. So Tall's hella late here. But we get the rules of the game here. So basically, Kuhn and British have to get the thorn to the arena, and Venti and Rachel who I'm assuming to be Rachel, again, we have no confirmation, it's just that from the beginning everyone's been calling her Rachel, so I'm just sticking with that instead of saying masked person whose identity we do not know every single time I have to refer to them. So if it's not Rachel, totally cool, but I'm just calling them Rachel for now. But either way, Venti and Rachel are allowed to pursue them, and I'm not entirely sure if other regulars are allowed to be involved or not. It's kind of questionable with the way it was worded, because it seemed like Michael was going to go with them, and technically Apple is the one that Kuhn has with them, and they asked Rack what he was going to do, but he said he was going to stay back with Bomb. So I'm not sure if other regulars are allowed to get involved or not. It would make sense if they are even if that would lend one side or the other an unfair advantage, because I don't see the rest of the arc going on without Ship and Hatsu getting involved in some way again, even though currently they are still with Ruelmo. So yeah, I'm not sure. It was left kind of unclear whether other regulars are allowed to get involved, or even rankers, but at least high rankers aren't allowed to. So the second of 3 parts of this challenge is that they can win, or either, well, it's not really either team, but it's like Doom's team can win ahead of time before any of the first part of things is settled. There's like 3 layers to this, but if either Doom, Paul, or Gato can beat Karaka in a 1v1 before either of those other teams make it to the arena with the Fang, then they just win ahead of time. But of course, Doom realizes that this is a trap. This isn't a good deal. This is kind of pointless because Karaka's a Slayer. Even if Doom isn't aware quite how strong Karaka is, just from the sort of fact that he's a Slayer, he can say, you're strong enough that you can just stall for time until your team makes it there. So that's obviously not an advantageous position for me to actually try to fight you. So then we get the third layer of this, which is that Doom's whole team, everybody they got, can just go pursue the Fang as soon as they want if the brother beats Bomb without using transformations. So again, it's this sort of way to lull them into the false sense of security, since Bomb is a regular. Even though he's a regular with the Thorn, with all this crazy other stuff, and he's an irregular regular, he has all this stuff going for him, and the main method of the K9 people fighting that they would use to climb the tower to become rankers would be transformation, so this guy is basically stuck using base power without any of his actual ability. So again, this is where they really sort of have an advantage in all 3, really. Sort of, Kun and Berdish already have the Fang, they just have to protect it and get it there without having it taken. So they already have an advantage there. With the second layer of things, Karaka has a clear advantage because he can just stall for time. He doesn't have to actually win. And for the third one, they have the advantage in them not knowing Bomb's true strength, and the other guy, the ranker, the brother, not being allowed to use his actual abilities. So then we get into the actual stakes of things. So if Karaka's team wins, then Doom becomes their ally. So Doom's group is going to help them with their little fight, their plan to save Jinsung, if Karaka's team wins. But if Doom's team wins, then Karaka will, give up his Slayer seat and give it to Doom, so Doom gets to be Slayer in Karaka's place. And, of course, the reason that they have to all accept this is because if not, then freaking Yama's just gonna kill them all. So the game starts, we see Kun and Berdish going off and Venti going after them, with Rachel and Michael being like, oh crap, we need to get the suspended ship or whatever. Again, just assuming that's Rachel, because I feel like if I don't assume it's Rachel, half the comments are going to be like, oh my god, how can you not tell that that's obviously blatantly Rachel? And if I'm like, oh, it's not, and I just call them insert name here the whole time, they're, wait, yeah, that's what I just said. Or if I call them Rachel, as I'm doing now, half of them are going to be like, well, we don't technically know it's Rachel. Of course I know we don't technically know it's Rachel. But people are going to complain about it either way. And then we see the start of Doom versus Karaka, which is a non-start. Doom is like, I'm not actually fighting you, because it's pointless. You can just stall for time. And Bomb versus the guy's brother, and they fight for a bit. It's pretty cool. Bomb gets a hit off on him, and we don't know how it's going to go from there, but I'm kind of thinking Bomb has the clear advantage in that in just a straight slugfest, even if this guy pulls some sort of advantage over Bomb, Bomb still has a bunch of tricks that he can pull out. Now getting into the blog stuff. That's pretty important here, I think. Now, the blog translator translated Berdish's name as Verdici, so that kind of, if they're Verdici, it kind of makes me think that Berdish is even more of a good way to pronounce it, since Berdish is an alternate form of Bardish, which is sort of similar to the axe-type weapon that they're using if the axe-type weapon was super fantasied up into what Berdish actually uses. So I think that it's sort of reasonable that that could be why she is named what she is named. Of course, though, there's also the chance that she could just be named after a random footballer, because that's what CU likes to do. Also, Siyu mentions that the thing in the sky is a variable, and I'm assuming that what they're referring to there is Mule's eye. So, because they were talking about Yama and Mule at the time, so yeah, the eye is going to be important, or whatever that was. If it's some sort of escape pod and Mule has actually just gotten out of there like tiny Karaka tadpole form, who knows? Also, he mentions, and I think this explanation is good, that Kun's power just buffs someone's base power, so it doesn't seem like some permanent thing that he can just go around throwing bits of flame to everybody and making everybody super powerful enough to rank up another level of transformation, essentially. So it's just a buff of one's base power. Also, he puts a limiter on it saying that Kun can only revive people whose life force is still lit. So pretty much they can't be fully dead for a long time. It's more of a spiritual than physical thing with the whole, seemingly with the whole life force still lit. So there has to be some sort of bit of them left there for the firefish to revive, it would seem. So it's good to throw a limiter on that. And yeah, in general, some thoughts on it that I didn't cover when going through it part by part. I really feel like it's totally going to be broken up. Somebody like Kelhelm is obviously going to stop this game before it reaches its conclusion, or just totally throw this game off the rails. But I hope they don't do it too soon. I hope we get a good few chapters where we actually get to see this play out, where we actually get to see Kun and Berdish with the others chasing after them, where we actually get to see Bomb versus this guy, maybe even Karaka versus one of Doom's high rankers or Doom himself. I hope we actually get to see a little bit of that. Like if Bomb takes down the one guy and then they're like, oh crap, we need somebody to try to fight Karaka now. I think that I'd like to see that play out a bit before it gets interrupted, but I feel like the whole it getting interrupted part of things is sort of already in the works, can't be stopped. Also, I really do like Berdish, and I really like this sort of game slash test slash challenge setup, because like I said, I think the sort of games and challenges are when Tower of God's at its best. So overall, I'd give it 8 challenges out of 10 because I enjoyed that part about it. And whenever we get these big rule dump chapters. But yeah, it was enjoyable, and I hope you enjoyed it too. But either way, like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this chapter, what you thought of my thoughts on it and all that. Subscribe for more. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel or talk to you there. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord, it's free and open for anyone. And if you want to help support the channel on Patreon and help select new series that'll be on the channel every 3 months, then a link to the Patreon will be in the description. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you all next time.